to start by thanking each person who's on today for everything you do. You're doing important things to help students and families go through a very challenging and difficult process at a really important time in their lives. And I want you to understand how much I appreciate you for doing that. My hope is that what I'm going to talk to you about today will ultimately get you thinking and ultimately help you grow in your current role as well as possibly future roles. For the past 9.5 years, I've led training workshops for admissions and enrollment marketing teams across the country. And as a speaker, it gets me excited when I see people taking all kinds of notes throughout training sessions. I also do one-on-ones as part of trainings, and it's fun to have people ultimately want to expand on a lot of the ideas that they take away from that first day of training. I run into a lot of those people at an AMA, a NACAC, another ACAC type event. And as we talk, eventually the conversation shifts to, so what have you tried? What are you doing differently since I last saw you? A lot of times I get one of two responses. I've been thinking about things a lot, or we haven't had time yet, but we're planning to. Do either of those sound familiar? Too often, we go to professional development trainings or we come to events like this and we take pages of notes, we think about things, we even talk with people about things, but then we put off taking action. Why is that? Why do we get stuck in such a fixed mindset? Fear of failure is the reason that people tell me usually prevents them from taking action. But in talking with other senior leaders, all the way down through brand new staff, I'm also finding it's not necessarily that people are opposed to change. It's more they're just uncomfortable with the thought of what's that process look like? I'm not familiar with it, so there's that fear of the unknown. The problem with both those things is they end up creating self-doubt. And as humans, when we doubt ourselves or we feel uncomfortable and uncertain about something, we just tend to avoid taking any sort of action or making changes. It's hard to grow when everything is status quo. It's hard to grow when everything is status quo. I want you to know it's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay to have fears and concerns. We all have them. But if we don't address them, we limit our growth, our level of impact, and our personal and professional success. Anytime you want to overcome a fear or a concern, the first thing you have to do is acknowledge it exists. And then it's important to reframe your mind and think about it differently. Our mindset, it's one of the most powerful tools we all have. It literally determines how we show up every single day. Earlier this summer, I was in Alabama getting ready to lead a staff training workshop. And as I usually do, I stopped by a Starbucks or a place to get coffee. As I get into my rental car, put my Americano down into the console, I decide I want to take a sip before I back out of the parking lot. So I grab my Americano, and as I get ready to take a sip, coffee all over myself. The lid wasn't on all the way. In that moment, I had a choice. My mindset could have easily been, well, that's a sign. This is going to be a bad day. This is not going to go well. But I took a pause. I reframed my mindset and focused more on my why as a presenter and speaker and what I was trying to accomplish that day with that team. If you have the mindset of today's not going to be a good day, or, well, this is the way we've always done it, or I don't know if that'll work. Psychologists have proven Our behaviors align with our thoughts. But when you have a growth mindset, instead of saying things like, I've never done that before, you start to use language like, I've never done that before, but I'm ready to learn and try. Or, I don't know how to do that. You don't say that. Instead, you say, I don't know how to do that yet. You have to insert belief to have a growth mindset. I'm often asked what the most successful people in higher ed or any industry do differently than others, whether it's leaders all the way down to brand new staff starting out. I can tell you they prioritize their mindset. They work on it daily. They work on that belief that I talked about. Because like everything else, you have to work at it to ultimately see growth and improvement. They tell themselves, I will get better today. They literally use those words. I start every single day the same way. I give thanks for one thing, and I tell myself, I'm going to get better today. I don't know a single human who functions at 100% every single day. There are opportunities for all of us to grow. That's what makes us human. So having a growth mindset ultimately then means you're open to change. You understand that the willingness to be open to change means that's a strength, not a weakness. Please give yourself permission to think that way if you don't already. Do not let fear of the unknown, fear of failure, or fear of what others will think ultimately control you. So when it comes to figuring out where your opportunities for growth are or what you might need to change, I encourage you to think and do some self-reflection and also look at your data. If you have data that says your target audience wants something different, or if it's clear the way that you're doing something, it's working okay, but it could be working better. You could be more efficient with your time. I want you to think, what can I do to change? Who do I need to help me with said change? And what do I need to do to come up with a plan to take action? You don't have to wait for somebody else to give you permission. And when you get new data or you move into a new role, it's okay to ultimately change again and change again. That's what people with a growth mindset do. Having a growth mindset also means you recognize you're going to make mistakes. I make mistakes every day. Failure is a part of growth. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. You're going to fail, and that's okay. FAIL stands for first attempt in learning. That's what I had someone once tell me. To maintain a growth mindset, it's very, very important that we understand the role our environment plays. I'm talking about friends, family, colleagues, your boss, location, habits, your lifestyle. They all impact your mindset for better or for worse. Make sure your environment supports whatever your goals are. Because if you surround yourself with people who are constantly negative, if you're constantly consuming content that is negative, you will start to have a more negative mindset. I encourage you, if you want to have a growth mindset, to start to or continue to surround yourself with other growth-oriented people and consume more positive content. For those of you on today who manage staff, I encourage you, if you're not already doing this, give your team permission to grow and try things. They need to hear that from you. Consistently reinforce why it's important to have a growth mindset. What's the value in it for them and the students and families that they work with? Let them know they're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. They need to hear that from you because it's part of the growth process for all of us. If you don't develop and maintain a growth mindset, it becomes harder to grow, and you limit your level of success and you limit your level of impact. And if you're a leader and you don't encourage your staff to have a growth mindset, it limits their ability to do those things as well. And I can tell you, and you all know this, right now there are a lot of young people who need you to impact them at a critical point in their life or their young career. A lot of those people are part of either Gen Z or Gen Alpha. They're both very experience-driven generations. Unfortunately, right now, both those generations believe that most of the experiences they're having with colleges and universities look and feel the same. The experiences that they have are focusing too much on information and not enough on creating feelings and memories. Feelings and memories. As humans, we all make decisions the same way. We all make decisions based on how we feel. We all make decisions based on how we feel. I have a 14-year-old daughter. Her name is Olivia. And for the past 6 or 7 years, she's been telling my wife, Jenny, and I, she's going to Butler University. Great school. Here's the thing. My daughter has never received anything from Butler University. She doesn't know anyone who works at Butler University. She's had 2 interactions with Butler University. When she was 7 and 8 years old, her dad took her to a couple of basketball games at Hinkle Fieldhouse. And because dad happened to have some connections, she was able to sit right behind the bench and get a very unique experience both times. My daughter will often tell me, Dad, I remember those times. They were fun. She can't verbalize to my wife, Jenny, and I why she wants to go to Butler. But she remembers how much of a fun experience it was seeing the Bulldog mascot walk right by her and all of the different other unique and fun things that happened that day at that event. We all make decisions based on how we feel, and feelings and memories very much influence this generation. So much so that when we do survey research with students right after they've made their college decision or soon after, the feel of campus remains the #1 cumulative decision-making factor for most students when it comes to choosing their college. So think about your campus visit experience. What kind of excitement and engagement are you creating ahead of the visit, especially in your communications? Is it just a lot of transactional messaging? Or are you building excitement for them ultimately to come and see your campus and to interact with you and other staff and students? Think about what happens when they show up on campus. What's the first thing you do? A lot of schools start by doing some version of an information session. That does not feel the same way as getting them out on a campus tour. And getting them out on a campus tour is the #1 thing in every survey we do that students say they want to do first when they take a campus visit. Think about that actual tour of campus. Is your tour guide prepared to lead the conversation? Or does he or she vomit information the entire time? That gives a different experience when you do one versus the other. Think about the other people that students connect with and meet as part of their campus visit experience. Are those people prepared to talk about things that are relevant and feel personal to that student or those family members? Because it's a completely different experience when they are. Think about your admitted student day events. Is it a lot of sessions back to back where everybody ends up feeling tired? Or are there fun activities and events and experiences that they're going to remember, just like my daughter remembers her time at Butler? Always ask yourself, what's our fun component? What are we doing anytime we do any sort of event, in person or virtual? When we do our fall travel, our spring travel, if we're admissions team members, what are we doing to be memorable? Focus more on that, and you will find you deliver a better experience. Because they won't remember all the information that you share with them. They won't. But you know what they will remember? Exactly how they felt throughout their campus visit, their admitted student day event, their interaction with you at a college fair or their high school. Another big part of the experience that they will remember is the way you communicate with them. So think about all the emails, the letters, the text messages, the phone calls that make up your communication stream. Do they feel personal and relevant, or do they feel completely transactional and scripted? There's a big difference, and both deliver different experiences. Only 24% of students tell us in surveys what I got from different colleges and universities during my search felt very personal. The majority tell us it all looked and sounded the same. It was too formal. There was too many links. It was too long. It all sounded like a marketing message. It did not feel like what I was hoping it would feel like. Easy things like your subject line can make an email, for example, feel more personal. Just by changing and using words like you and your, or the student's first or preferred name, as many of you I'm sure have seen, makes a huge difference. And 30% of students tell us in surveys, the subject line of an email is the number one thing that gets them to open a college-related email. You can deliver a different experience simply by changing a subject line. And then when you ultimately communicate with them in any medium or form, do you talk about things consistently that match with their interests, their motivators, and things that they might be scared, worried, or nervous about? Because every student you interact with, traditional or non-traditional, is scared, worried, or nervous about a lot of different things. And when you talk and address those things, you deliver a completely different kind of experience. Think about how quickly you follow up. Do you follow up in a matter of minutes, hours, or a lot of time does it take you days? Our tolerance for ultimately delay has gone down over the years because we see, especially post-pandemic, what is possible in other industries when it comes to getting things faster and having quicker communication with other companies. I just finished reading a study that was done this fall of 24,000 college students from across the country. And one of the questions in that study asked them, how can colleges and universities improve their communications? Speed of response was one of the top answers. I had Jay Baer, who is one of the world's most well-known customer experience and marketing experts, on my podcast a couple of weeks ago. And in his research that he just completed, 2/3 of consumers now say, ultimately, speed is just as important as price. A faster response delivers a different kind, and often in our brains, a better customer experience. When you follow up with students and families, do you just answer questions? Nothing wrong with doing that. Or do you give them more than what they asked for? That gives a different experience. And when you share content on social media, your website, do you incorporate video more? Because video creates different emotions and feelings than pictures and words. All of those things I just talked about contribute to a positive or negative customer experience with your school. And for those of you who manage people, or if your goal is to ever be in a position of leadership, think about the experiences that your team has throughout the year. What kind of culture are you creating and reinforcing? Culture is not about donuts and lunches and swag. Culture is about creating a safe space for people. It's about encouraging employee feedback, about listening, about showing empathy. Those type of things deliver a different employee experience. Do you celebrate the small wins throughout the year? They're just as important as the big wins. And do you intentionally, as a leader, get to know each person that you manage through intentional one-on-ones so that you can constantly determine what they need from you to ultimately grow based on whatever their goals are? All of those things contribute either positively or negatively to the employee experience. And the employee experience is equally important, because a better employee experience will not only improve your staff retention, but it allows your staff to deliver a better customer experience. It's really hard to deliver a better experience to prospective students and families if you're not delivering a good employee experience. And if you need one more thing to really push you and convince you about why experiences are so important, think about word of mouth and just the weight it holds for all of us. People talk a lot. People post things on social media and on the internet a lot. What are they saying about your school? What are they saying about you? I encourage you to think about those things because you control them. The last thing I want to share with you today, and it's the number one thing most colleges and universities need to do if they're going to improve yield this year. Parents continue to be the number one influencer, especially if you recruit traditional high school age students. How are you making them feel like a valued partner in this process? Because they're either your biggest asset or your biggest obstacle. We are continuing to find, as we work with colleges and universities, parents are the person who helps students set up visits. Parents are the ones who help with incomplete applications. Parents and family members are the ones who help with FAFSA completion, and they're the ones who students go to. First generation, college educated parents, it doesn't make a difference. They are the ones that go have conversations with students when it comes to that all-important decision. Please find ways. Please take the session this afternoon that you're going to hear from Laura and ultimately try to figure out how are we going to include parents in this discussion earlier in the process. Because when you do, I think you know what you'll find. Parents will share even more with you about what is happening behind the scenes. It's as simple as asking questions like, what's the biggest thing you want for Jeremy out of his college experience? How are you feeling about Jeremy's college options? Those kinds of questions are invaluable as you develop relationships with parents. So working in higher ed gives you the opportunity to influence and impact a lot of people every single day. I think that's pretty awesome. How many people get to say that in the career that they have? But if you don't develop and consistently maintain a growth mindset, if you provide the same kinds of experiences as your competitors, and you don't prioritize parents throughout this entire process, again, you limit your level of growth, you limit your yield, and you limit your impact. You're in control. I encourage you to think about some of the things I just talked about, as well as the things you've taken away and you will take away later today from this conference, and then ultimately take action on some of these things. Thank you for your time and attention.